Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to another episode, and today we are going in on something that people argue about all the time, but never quite finish the argument.
Which is a sign of a great topic, honestly.
It really is. So today's question is this: when it comes to real attraction, what matters more, beauty or confidence?
And I already know where this is going to go because I said something before we hit record that apparently started things off on the wrong foot.
You did not start it on the wrong foot. You started it on a foot that needed to be examined.
That is a very diplomatic way to say you disagreed with me.
I disagreed with your phrasing. There is a difference.
All right. What I said was I think most people, if they are being honest, would choose beauty over confidence in the first 5 seconds of meeting someone.
And I said that is probably true, but first 5 seconds is not a relationship. First 5 seconds is not even a conversation.
And that is exactly what we are going to unpack today.
Beautifully set up. Okay, so this is a topic that sounds a little shallow on the surface, but it actually goes quite deep once you start pulling at it.
Because it is really asking something bigger. It is asking what actually holds someone's attention, what makes a person memorable, what makes somebody feel genuinely attractive versus just visually noticeable.
Yes. And those are very different things.
Very different. You can be visually noticeable and completely forgettable at the same time.
Oh, that is painfully true. I have met people like that, and I am certain some people have said that about me on a bad day too.
Laughs. Honest. I respect that.
So let us actually get into it properly. We are also going to do a vocabulary section later in the episode where we slow things down and go through some of the useful words and phrases we use today. So stay with us all the way through.
Okay, so I want to start with the honest, slightly uncomfortable truth first. Beauty does matter, and I think pretending otherwise is a bit dishonest.
I completely agree. No one is sitting here saying beauty is irrelevant. That would be ridiculous.
Right, because the first time you see someone, whether it is in person, in a photo, across a room, there is an immediate reaction. And part of that reaction is absolutely about physical appearance.
It is almost automatic, right? We notice faces before we hear voices. We form something like an impression in under a second.
And that impression is not nothing. It carries real weight in the first moment.
But here's where it gets interesting. That first impression, that immediate visual reaction, it is sort of like the cover of a book. It might make you pick it up, but it is not the story.
The cover gets your hand to reach for it. The story is what keeps you up at night reading.
Exactly. And so the question becomes what happens after that first glance, because that is where things shift completely.
And I think in my own experience, and I have thought about this honestly, I have met people who looked stunning and then they opened their mouth and something just deflated. Not because they said anything terrible, necessarily, just because the energy was off. The warmth was not there. Or worse, the arrogance was there.
Yes, and that deflation happens faster than people expect. You do not need a whole conversation for the impression to change. Sometimes one sentence does it.
One sentence, one moment of dismissiveness, one instance of not making eye contact while you are talking to them.
And suddenly the beauty is still there, but you have stopped caring about it.
Right? It is like the visual information is still saying one thing, but everything else is saying something completely different.
And your whole system is listening to everything else. So let us talk about what confidence actually is. Because I think a lot of people hear the word confidence and they picture someone very loud, very bold, taking up a lot of space.
Yes, that version of confidence.
And that is one version. But I do not think it is the most attractive one, honestly.
What is the more attractive version to you?
I would say it is quieter. It is the person who does not seem to need approval from the room. They walk in and they are just settled in themselves. They are not scanning the space wondering what people think of them.
That kind of presence is very distinct. You feel it even before you speak to someone.
Yes. And I think the word I keep coming back to is ease. Confident people seem at ease in their own skin, like they are not fighting themselves.
And that comfort radiates outward. It actually affects the people around them.
It really does. I had this experience once at a work event, quite a formal one, a little stiff, and there was this one person who I honestly could not even say was the most polished-looking person in the room. But they had this way of speaking to people. Relaxed, curious, genuinely listening. And gradually the whole corner of the room where they were standing just became the most alive part of the evening.
Because they gave other people permission to relax.
That is exactly it. They gave other people permission to relax.
And you could spend an hour with someone physically stunning who gives off the opposite energy, tense, self-absorbed, constantly performing, and you would leave that conversation feeling drained.
And that is the difference. Real confidence does not drain the room. It fills it.
I want to add something here about confidence in language learning too, because I think it is so relevant. Learners often say, I will speak more confidently when my English is better. And I get where that comes from. But in my experience, it usually works the other way.
The confidence comes first. Or at least alongside.
Yes. The willingness to try, to stay in the conversation even when you stumble, that willingness is itself confidence, and people respond to it warmly. A small grammar mistake with full commitment is far more engaging than a perfect sentence delivered in a whisper.
Because people are not grading you. They are connecting with you.
Exactly. Nobody is sitting there with a red pen. They are just trying to have a conversation. Okay. So, we have talked about what confidence looks like. Now let us go into something a little more tender, because I think this part of the conversation matters a lot.
Beauty without confidence.
Yes, because it is possible to be very, very beautiful, genuinely, objectively striking, and still not carry that in a way that feels attractive.
And this is where I think beauty and attractiveness are actually two different things that people confuse.
Say more about that.
Beauty is, in a sense, something people observe. Attractiveness is something people experience. One is visual, the other is felt.
That is a really good distinction.
And someone can be beautiful in a way that you observe and then feel absolutely nothing toward no pull, no warmth, no real interest.
Because the beauty is not matched by anything underneath it. Or worse, underneath it, there is something fragile that keeps leaking out.
Insecurity. And I want to be careful here because insecurity is not a character flaw. It is something many of us carry.
Yes, it is not a judgment. It is just an observation that when insecurity is very present in someone's energy, when they seem constantly braced for judgment, when every compliment makes them uncomfortable, when they seem to be apologizing just by being in a room that energy communicates something.
And it overrides the beauty. After a while, you stop noticing the face first, and you start feeling the anxiety first.
Because you are a human being around another human being. You are picking up signals from all directions, not just the visual ones.
And the hopeful flip side of this is that confidence is buildable. It can grow. Beauty, in the conventional sense, is somewhat fixed. But the way you carry yourself, the ease you develop over time, the self-acceptance that comes from living through hard things, those can all increase.
And they do increase. Slowly, imperfectly, but they do.
Which is why someone can become more attractive as you know them better. And that is not just personality overriding the visual. That is actual attractiveness growing because they are becoming more settled in who they are.
All right. We cannot have this conversation without talking about the line between confidence and arrogance. Because someone always brings it up, and honestly, it is worth addressing properly.
They are genuinely very different things.
Very different. A confident person tends to make you feel comfortable. An arrogant person tends to make you feel small.
Right. Confidence creates space for other people. Arrogance shrinks that space. Arrogance is essentially confidence that has decided other people matter less.
And you can usually feel the difference within about 3 minutes of conversation.
Arrogance has this particular quality: it feels hungry somehow, like it needs you to confirm how impressive the person is.
Yes, it keeps fishing. It keeps dropping hints about status or achievements or connections. Not because the person is sharing something genuinely, but because they need you to be impressed.
And ironically, that need reveals the insecurity underneath. Real confidence does not need the room to agree with it.
Real confidence is at peace, whether you are impressed or not.
Right. And that peacefulness is what becomes attractive. There is something deeply appealing about a person who is comfortable enough in themselves that they do not need you to confirm their worth.
And for English learners specifically, I know some people worry that speaking up or expressing opinions confidently will make them come across as arrogant. But there is such a difference between saying, "Here is what I think," openly, and making others feel like their thoughts do not count.
Exactly. Participating in a conversation is not arrogance. Having a perspective is not arrogance. Arrogance would be cutting others off, dismissing other views, treating fluency like a trophy.
Confidence is just saying, "I belong in this conversation." Arrogance is saying, "The rest of you are lucky I am here."
Laughs. Very clear distinction. Okay, so we are getting to what I think is the deepest layer of this whole topic. We have talked about first impressions, about what confidence actually looks like, about beauty versus attractiveness, about arrogance. But I want to zoom out for a second.
Go ahead.
Because I think this conversation is ultimately about what kind of impact someone leaves on you. Not what they look like, not even what they say, but how they make you feel in their presence.
And the people who leave the deepest impressions are rarely the most conventionally beautiful. They are the ones who made you feel seen.
Yes, seen, and a little lighter for having talked to them.
There is a word for that quality: charisma. And I think people misunderstand what charisma is.
Most people think charisma is being charming and witty and dazzling to be around.
But actually, a lot of the most charismatic people I have ever encountered were not especially loud or flashy. They were warm. They were fully present. They made you feel like you were the only person they were talking to in that moment.
And that is almost more powerful than beauty. Because beauty might make someone look at you, but that kind of attentiveness makes someone feel genuinely valued.
And people do not forget how you made them feel, even long after they have forgotten what you were wearing or how you looked.
Which brings us to the answer I think we have both been circling around this whole episode.
Beauty opens the door, but it does not guarantee you a seat at the table.
Confidence real, settled, warm confidence. That is what keeps people in the room. That is what makes someone truly magnetic over time.
And magnetic is the right word, because it is not about demanding attention. It is about having a quality that draws people toward you without even trying.
And you can build that. That is the most important thing. Okay, let us slow things down now and go through some of the most useful words and phrases from today's episode. These are words that will help you talk about attraction, confidence, and the impression people make.
Listen first, then repeat with us. We will give you an example for each one.
First word, presence.
Presence is the feeling or impact someone creates when they are in a room with you. It is not just about looks. It is about the energy they carry.
For example, she walked in quietly, but she had a real presence. Everyone noticed her almost immediately. Repeat. Presence.
Presence. Next, first impression.
A first impression is the initial feeling or opinion you form when you meet someone for the first time. It happens very quickly, sometimes in just a few seconds.
For example, he made a strong first impression. Calm, warm, easy to talk to. Repeat. First impression.
First impression. Next, to carry yourself.
If you carry yourself well, you present yourself with confidence through your posture, your movement, and your behavior. It does not require perfect looks or expensive clothes.
For example, even in simple clothes, she carried herself in a way that made people take her seriously. Repeat. Carry yourself.
Carry yourself. Next, self-assured.
If someone is self-assured, they feel secure in who they are. They do not need constant approval or reassurance from others.
For example, he gave his opinion calmly and self-assuredly without waiting to see if people agreed. Repeat, self-assured.
Self-assured. Next, magnetic.
If a person is magnetic, they are so compelling or attractive that people naturally feel drawn toward them, not because they are demanding attention, but because their energy pulls people in.
For example, there was something magnetic about the way she listened to people. You always wanted to keep talking to her. Repeat. Magnetic.
Magnetic. Next, to give off.
To give off something means to send out or create a certain feeling, energy, or impression. You can give off warmth, confidence, nervousness, or even arrogance.
For example, he gives off such a relaxed energy that other people around him stop feeling anxious too. Repeat, give off.
Give off. Next, charisma.
Charisma is a natural charm or quality that draws people toward you. It is often made up of warmth, ease, and the ability to make people feel comfortable and valued.
For example, real charisma is not about being the loudest person in the room. It is about making others feel heard. Repeat. Charisma.
Charisma. Next, insecure.
If someone feels insecure, they lack confidence in themselves. They may seek constant reassurance, avoid attention, or feel like they are never quite good enough.
For example, despite being extremely talented, she still felt deeply insecure whenever she had to speak in front of a group. Repeat, insecure.
Insecure. And our last word for today, poise.
Poise means calm, controlled confidence. A person with poise does not seem rushed or rattled. They handle pressure with grace and steadiness.
For example, she answered even the difficult questions with real poise. No rush, no panic, just quiet certainty. Repeat, poise.
Poise. And that is your word tour for today. 10 strong words and phrases that will help you speak about confidence, attraction, and the impression people leave long after the conversation ends.
So let us bring this home. The question was beauty or confidence? And I think by now, the answer has shaped itself pretty clearly.
Beauty is real. Beauty matters. And nobody in this conversation is pretending otherwise. The first glance is powerful.
But it is also limited. It cannot carry a conversation. It cannot fill a room with warmth. It cannot make someone feel genuinely seen.
Confidence, the real, settled, non-performative kind, can do all of those things. And it tends to grow over time rather than fade.
And here is the part I find genuinely hopeful. Beauty is largely something you are born with, but confidence is something you build through small moments, awkward conversations, risks that work out, and risks that do not. And somehow, you come out a little more at ease each time.
And that ease is attractive, deeply attractive, not because it looks a certain way, but because of how it feels to be around it.
So our question for you today is this in your own life. Which matters more to you, beauty or confidence? And be honest. We want real answers, not the polished version.
Leave a comment, send us a message, let us know. And if you want to share a personal story, someone you met who surprised you, an experience that changed how you think about this, we would love to hear it.
Take care of your English.
And take care of yourselves.
Thanks for listening. We will see you in the next one.